Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I hereby call this Committee of the Whole meeting to order. All councilors are present this evening. Would you please stand for a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance led by Councilor Benton. Thank you all for being here this evening. Civic Plaza parking passes are provided for members of the public. You can obtain a parking pass from council staff at the sign-up table. Tonight is the second of 3 public hearings the council is required to hold on the city's operating budget. Tonight's meeting will focus on the physical goal budgets, which include animal welfare, aviation, DMD, planning, and transit, among others. At tonight's meeting, the council will receive public comment. All public comment must be germane to the bills on tonight's agenda. The council will hold a third Committee of the Whole meeting on May 16th to consider amendments or floor substitutes to the bills on tonight's agenda. No public comment will be taken at the May 16th meeting. At the end of the May 16th meeting, the budget as amended or substituted will be sent to the Monday, May 20th City Council meeting. Public comment will be taken at the May 20th Council meeting. We appreciate everyone being here this evening, and we will now go to public comment. I believe, Councilor Davis, would you like to, do you have to leave early today? Okay. All right, so we'll go to public comment. Each speaker will have 2 minutes. The green light on the podium will turn yellow when you have 30 seconds remaining. At 2 minutes, it will return red and ring to signal your time is up. And please remember that your public comment must be germane to topics on the agenda this evening. Our first speaker is Paul Broom, followed by Leland Taylor.
Thank you, Madam President. Members of the council, good evening. I'm Paul Broom. I'm negotiator for the police officers as well as the prisoner transport officers. I'm hoping I'm germane to this topic, but I'll be brief. The prisoner transport operators are the smallest bargaining unit in the city, 24 of them. And for 10 years, they've been trying to get parity with the county's transport operators in terms of pay. It's been a long grind, but this year, working directly with the administration and with the department and with Human Resources Department, the employees early this morning, ratified that contract, and they are finally, after a 10-year wait, they are actually at parity. And I just wanted to come and actually thank the administration, as well as the department, as well as the Human Resources Department, especially Diane Kimberly, for the work that they did in working with this very, very small unit, and it's worked out very well. And the officers asked me to ask you to support them in their budget. And thanks very much, ma'am.
Thank you. Leland Taylor, followed by Omar Torres.
Good evening, councilors. I was noticing in the news today that there was a Band-Aid to try to help the art businesses along Central, which I found to be interesting. Apparently, there was no record of the number of businesses that went out because of the art construction. $1 million in development of the area and $500,000 in grants is a Band-Aid over a problem which is going to continue for a long time. Expanding art is not going to do any better, not to do any good, because of the lack of service to the local businesses that it represents. So the way you tell how many businesses have gone out is you simply look at the failure of businesses in that area to renew their licenses. We still have the problem, we're looking at a budget process, regarding the question of costs of the illegal alien invasion. How much is it costing the city? Where is that money coming from? How it is affecting all of the aspects of city operations. And for that reason, I still recommend that the city reverse its course and put itself into the normal compliance with federal law. I'm still trying to answer my child's question about why is it the city doesn't have to follow federal law, but children have to. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker is Omar Torres, followed by Dave Weaver. And remember, please, your statements do need to remain germane to the topics this evening. Thank you.
Hello. What's up, y'all? My name is Omar Torres. Hello, audience. And I'm here on behalf of a community organization called Together for Brothers, and we've been doing a lot of work around transit equity. And I'm here to ask y'all that since this is a budget meeting, and transit is one of the things pertinent to your agenda today, that you really think about how we can make it and how we can collaborate across departments so that all people, young people 18 and under, can get on the city bus for free. I know you've spoken to a few of y'all before about this. And yeah, that's really just a message. When I was a young person, right now I have the privilege of having a car, but when I was a young person, I really needed the bus. And it wasn't always available to me because of my financial situation. And so I know that it would be really helpful for everybody to, at least all young people, to be able to have access to the bus and ride it for free, right? It's a sense of agency, to be able to go to school, go to work, get a job in the first place, and be able to use all the resources available by the city, right? Go to the library, go to the public pool. And so, yeah, I just really think it's important for us to think about that. Other cities have done it. Santa Fe is doing it. Los Alamos is doing it. And there's no reason that Albuquerque can't be doing it as well. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Please, there is no applause allowed in the chambers. Mr. Dave Weaver, followed by Tad Naminsky. Good evening.
There's a hostile invasionary force invading this country at our southern border, making a law that
Sir, does this have
allows-
anything to do with the budget meeting?
Yes, it does. It has to do with spending money on aiding and abetting an invasionary force that is illegal according to the U.S. Constitution at Title 8, Section 1324. So I would recommend that the council reverse that law and not spend money on aiding and abetting an enemy to the United States.
Thank you, sir. Tad Naminsky, followed by Michelle Benton.
Thank you. My Ted Niemiecki. Here is, you are claiming it is committee meeting, not whole. It is whole, full council meeting. Why I'm saying here, if that's not, why you stick it right here, ordinance, back door, and not allowing people to speak on the 4 top different agendas, especially ordinance on the borough, which has to do imposing trash fee. So anyway, well, let me begin it this way. I want to just talk about filthy rich fat cats. Present right here, coming from a different, very well, that's right. Real estate commercial broker with all different associations to commercial owners in downtown and owners. That's what I'm talking. One of the example, one of them sitting in front of me. And now she wants to do a lot of good for the people. Well, those people right here, what I just mentioned, they have income anywhere between $3,000 to $6,000 a month to spend it. Well, that's versus $750 and to $1,100 average other people. And now they want to backdoor become later law, which is entire issue connected with collecting by but garbage people. Well, I don't have time to.
Thank you, Mr. Naminsky. Next speaker is Michelle Benton, followed by Mahdi Hassan. Good evening.
Good evening. I want to call out some of the charities that have been working really hard lately: Lutheran Family Services, Catholic Charities, and Nob Hill Indivisible for their hard work helping the migrants who have arrived in Albuquerque. I'm here to support Councilor Pat Davis's $250,000 proposal to assist these immigrants. This can help all residents of Albuquerque who have wholeheartedly donated their time and money recently to assist in this process of feeding and temporarily housing the migrants on their way to unite with family in other parts of the country. The sooner these people can be reunited with family outside of New Mexico, the better for all of us and for them too. We are just now starting to see this in Albuquerque and do our part to join Las Cruces and El Paso in this humanitarian mission. So by having city help, we can better organize and make this process more efficient. I also want to thank the State Fairgrounds because they've opened a site to accommodate the migrants so that the local hotels that have been doing this will no longer have to provide their rooms, especially now that it's almost tourist season, so that will free up rooms for tourism. I just want to say in closing that a sign of a strong community is how you treat the weakest among you, and you have an opportunity to show that by supporting this funding. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Benton. And let me remind you that that is not a topic that's on tonight's agenda at all, but that will be on Monday's City Council agenda.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Yes, Council.
That's pretty much what I was going to say, but I appreciate that, you know, this is something that people want to address, but it really isn't germane to the 2020 operating budget. But so come back next Monday. Thank you.
Thank you. Mahdi Hussein, followed by Richard Hanna. Good evening.
Hello, everybody. My name is Mahdi Hussaini. I go to Highland High School. So I want to talk about public transportation and need your support to support public transportation and have a youth bus for all youths in Albuquerque, because most of youths going to schools, they're like being tardy and absent for first period. So they have like a lot of tardies and a lot of they're not being excused. So we want you to like support us to have public transportation as a better way, like have free youth bus passes for all youths in Albuquerque and support them to go to school and attend to school and not to drop out of school. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Thank you. Richard Hanna?
My name is Richard Hanna, and I'm here on behalf of the Balloon Museum. I'm one of the trustees for the Balloon Foundation, and I'd like for you to consider adding $100,000 to the budget for an exhibit for the 50th anniversary of the Balloon Fiesta. It's an important historic event that is germane to Albuquerque and an important part of ballooning history. We've obtained $100,000 already from the state legislature so they can see the importance of an exhibit of this type at our Balloon Museum, and we request that you also look at adding $100,000 to make that exhibit possible. We're estimating that exhibit would run approximately $250,000. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hanna. That concludes our speakers for this evening. And I believe next on the agenda is Ms. Renee Martinez, Director of Finance and Administrative Services. She will be giving a presentation on the Physical Goal Department budgets. Councilors will have an opportunity to ask questions of each department in just a few moments. And I ask that you please hold your specific department questions until Ms. Martinez has completed her presentation. And the first questions will be of DMD because Councilor Davis has some questions and has another appointment this evening. So good evening, Ms. Martinez.
Yeah, Madam Chair, council members, good evening. As you said, this evening we will continue to provide information to you on the mayor's proposed operating budget for fiscal year 2020. This evening's focus will be on the physical goal departments. I will start with a high-level overview of the proposed budget for the 3 large enterprise departments, and those being aviation, solid waste, and transportation, and then move to highlights for each of these departments. After the large enterprise departments, we have prepared a slide with budget highlights for each of the other physical goal departments. We can pause for your questions whenever you prefer. Department directors and some of their staff, I see some division directors as well as their fiscal managers here, are here to address your questions. First, I thought to take a minute just to remind the council on some underlying government finance principles that guide how we account for monies entrusted to us. We follow best practices prescribed by the Governmental Accounting Standards Board, GASB, and their guidelines tell us that a governmental accounting system should be organized and operated on a fund basis. Each fund has a separate set of self-balancing accounts for the purpose of carrying out specific activities. Now, most of our municipal government operations are supported by the general fund. That includes police, fire, parks and recreation, cultural services, and other departments. Enterprise funds are used when resources are provided primarily through the use of service charges or fees to those receiving the benefit. A good example is aviation. Fees are charged to a range of customers such as passengers, airlines, rental car companies to compensate the city for aviation or airport services provided. Revenue generated within the enterprise covers operations and is restricted for use on enterprise activities. On an annual basis, enterprise revenues are estimated by the departments based on trend analysis of growth, positive and negative. These estimates are then reviewed by the city economist and budget analyst within the Office of Management and Budget. This slide shows the 3 enterprise departments and how the proposed budget for fiscal year 20 compares to the approved budget for this current fiscal year. Solid waste, as you see, has the smallest proposed increase at 2.4%, and aviation the largest at 31.1%. So, Madam Chair, we have a slide for each enterprise department summarizing the significant changes from fiscal year 19 to our proposed budget for fiscal year 20. I'm prepared to read the information and then allow the committee to ask questions of the director and their staff, if you prefer. So with aviation, the fiscal year 20 proposed operating budget for the aviation department is $79,923,000. That is 291 positions, and that's an increase of 3. The highlights here are that there's a transfer to capital is increased by 20 million, of which 10 million is proposed for security improvements deemed necessary to maintain FAA compliance and to ensure proper security enforcement. The other 10 million is in the budget to purchase equipment and to support other airport capital improvements. There's also a reappropriation of $2 million in the budget to continue the initiative to develop an intermodal transport hub, $273,000 to address public safety and security needs 24/7 by creating 2 positions, 1 aviation lieutenant, and reclassifying 4 FTEs into 2 positions and 2 airfield operation officers. And then the last highlight is that $160,000 in contractual dollars is in the budget, and the reclassification of 1 FTE to a sustainability manager to support an enhanced sustainability program to reduce the environmental impacts at the Sunport. Do you have any questions for the aviation department?
Councilors, are there any questions? No. Thank you, Ms. Martinez.
Madam Chair, I do, but I'd like to just wait till after the entire
Okay.
presentation is completed.
Thank you.
Okay. Solid waste. The fiscal year 20 proposed operating budget for the solid waste department is $73,407,000. That is 469 staff position. Highlights include a $15,000 increase to expand the There's a Better Way program, which employs homeless citizens on weed and litter crews, and this will add a third driver. We have 2 drivers today. The program is conducted in collaboration with the Family and Community Services Department. The budget also includes continued funding of $510,000 to support the Clean and Safe Block-by-Block program in the downtown area. In fiscal year 20, we will bring the Board Up program in-house by moving these responsibilities from the Planning Department to Solid Waste. This will be funded through a transfer from the general fund, since the Planning Department is a general funded department. And then $162,000 contractual increases in the budget to support landfill operations. This covers the cost of transporting tires out of state, which will be offset by an increase in the tire disposal fee, which is being proposed. Transit. The fiscal year 20 proposed operating budget for the Transit Department is $56,576,000. That's 544 positions. Highlights include funding of $2.2 million is added to the budget to support repairs and maintenance and fuel increases. Also, an increase of $900,000 in the personnel category. Includes funding for medical premiums, wage adjustments. These are, of course, subject to negotiation with the union, and overtime. $170,000 is reduced in contractual service in this budget as security and compressed natural gas maintenance costs have decreased. And then lastly, the general fund subsidy for this department has increased in this budget by $4.5 million. This slide, now that we've covered the 3 large enterprise departments, this slide shows the general fund appropriation proposed in fiscal year 20 for each social goal department, with a comparison to the approved budget for fiscal year 19. So that first column should say approved budget fiscal year 19, both expressed as a dollar amount and a percentage. It further shows in the last 2 columns the appropriation in fiscal year 20 that is a recurring appropriation versus one time. As presented last Thursday, due to a change in the city's revenue recognition policy, there is a $28.6 million one-time resource of general fund that has been appropriated to the various items across departments. We thought that this would be a good way to show you the differences in the budget, because a lot of the increases are due to that one-time appropriation versus the regular recurring. Let's go to the Municipal Development Department, since we know that that's of interest to you. And so I'm going to move along in the presentation until the summary slide for them. And then we may pause for questions from you. So the fiscal year 20 proposed general fund budget for the Municipal Development Department is $50,146,000, and 337 positions. The budget also includes in other funds, not general funds, $17,627,000 and 122 positions. In the budget, there's funding that's for a one-time funding for street lighting, pedestrian safety, and neighborhood signage in the amount of $2.25 million. There's also funding of $100,000 for a new surveyor position that would go to the construction division. Also, funding for 2 progressive engineering series positions to provide a career ladder for the street maintenance and management workforce. A transfer of the crossing guard program, which we discussed a little bit last Thursday, from APD to the municipal development. And then lastly, an increase in the transfer to the stadium fund to fund maintenance and repairs at the stadium.
Are there any questions, councilors? Okay, the floor is all yours still.
I'm going to go ahead and then go back.
If we may please, Director. Yes, Councilor Davis.
Madam Chair, thank you. If you don't mind, and I appreciate your patience, I'd like to be able to ask Mr. Montoya a follow-up here, and it's my apologies. I need to leave a few minutes early for a community meeting that was scheduled before this, and I'd love to follow up with Mr. Montoya quickly.
I think that's appropriate. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you so much. Mr. Montoya, while you're coming, I'll get started if that's okay. This is a fairly easy one, and I know Mr. Padilla and I were talking about it earlier. In the DMD's responses during hearings, they outlined a process or a partnership with the Parks Department to begin to share security services to assist the Parks Department in, I think, testing a new protocol for park security. Can you give us just a very quick summary of what that looks like between the two departments?
Madam Chair, Councilor Davis, so the details have not been worked out. I think we were waiting for the hearing tonight to make sure that the appropriation was funded. Basically, what it would consist of is similar to what we do with some of the other departments that we provide security for, such as cultural services, family and community services, even solid waste. Basically, what would happen is that if, in fact, a park needed additional security, because right now, APD to some extent provides that security for them. I believe that Director Simon is here as well, but he would tell you that we do contract some of that out to the outside agencies. But basically what would happen is that as we brought those individuals in to patrol those parks, it would be part of a regular shift. So they would bid that out within a 6-month period, and then that would be included in that program. So technically what would happen is that if someone wanted to bid working a park instead of the zoo or working the aquarium, that's what they would do in that process. They would be paid at the same rate that we pay all of our security guards. It would not be considered overtime. It's part of a regular shift.
Thank you, Mr. Montoya. And in responses, Madam Chair, thank you. In responses in budget hearings, I think DMD outlined a process that said that if security wasn't able to fill those positions, they would consider using outside contract security. I just want to raise this question and ask if we could do some follow-up about that. I understand that we know last year this council and the administration stepped up to give our J-Series security officers a raise, and we heard from our J-Series representatives from AFSCME that had really helped with recruiting and retention in those targeted positions, which included security. But I also understand there's a concern, and it may be a pending labor grievance that we need to let settle. There's a concern that perhaps we should be using our security officers first for those positions and maybe not private contract security. Can you talk about why the department might consider private contract instead of offering overtime or other services to our existing city employees?
Madam Chairman, Councilor Davis, right now we do contract services with a local company for our parking structures. And part of it has to do with just the demand that we have on the department and the number of individuals at the positions that we have filled. Filling security guard positions is a tough one for us, simply because the pay is much lower than most other city jobs. The retention period for those individuals is, again, much shorter than most city employees. But basically what it is, it's a demand for the service and not being able to provide the appropriate personnel for that. I believe we have 112 security guard positions funded. At any given time, we probably somewhere around 90 to 100. So we're always short in that area. So it's just a matter of, and you have to keep in mind that we do 24-hour shifts at all of the facilities. So if someone calls in sick, we're having to call someone in to cover that. So it's probably a shortage of manpower.
And thank you. And Madam Chair, just to close, and I know Councilor Pena has been also sort of looking at this issue. I just maybe request from the administration, if they could, to help us before we get to that final place of making a decision, if someone could help us do an analysis on the use of private contract versus in-house AFSCME. I said I understand there may be a labor grievance that's still pending that we need to resolve there. But I know we've been working for a couple of years, long-term, on standing up our security officers, particularly our J service. We've been investing in that. I know the administration has asked for about $500,000 in general help with recruiting that was supposed to help go into this. You know, I'd really love to see us, if that's a real need for our security, to invest in that the right way with city employees and support our workforce with living wage in a way that we know we can control, and to build up our city workforce with good employees. And I'd love for us to prioritize that over private security. But hopefully somebody could do an analysis for us before the next meeting on the proper use there.
Mr. Ryle, I think you have a question, but would you please stay, Director? We have one more question for you.
Madam President, Madam Chair, and Councilor Davis and members of the council, we share that same concern that you just expressed. We want to ensure that our employees that are working for us have an opportunity to have the opportunity to fill those vacant positions, and or if we have to do some overtime. I think Director Montoya's primary concern is if we do have the opportunity to say have overtime for, let's say, security of parks, and our existing J-Series personnel don't want to bid for that, that we have a backup plan in case that happens. But we share your same interests. We'd like to ensure that we can reward and help our J-Series employees because they are part of the workforce, so we support you. But we will get that analysis for you.
Thank you. And Councilor Gibson has a question?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. My question is, and I guess I should know this, but I certainly don't, do our security guards carry any kind of protection, like mace or anything like that?
Madam Chair, Councilor Gibson, so our security guards, let me up front, carry no weapons whatsoever. We allow them to carry a baton and cuffs, handcuffs. They carry a mace, but we don't have a taser, and they're required to wear a vest.
Okay.
And that's probably the most that they have in their possession. Jason, am I missing anything else? That's probably about all they. There we go, right there. You want to stand for us? That's how they're outfitted right now.
Oh, that poor man. He was not, he didn't buy into this.
This is kind of like show and tell for the city council, right?
Madam Chair, that's our Vanna White for today. So.
And they are permitted to carry a smile as well.
Yes.
Thank you.
So I'm glad to hear that, because if they're going to be out monitoring activities happening in the parks, typically, they'd go out there for illegal activities. Yes. We would want to make sure that they had everything with them that, necessary to protect themselves.
And Madam Chair, let me just, one more thing, Councilor Gibson. So they do have a vehicle, they're assigned a vehicle, the vehicle is equipped. We're allowed to detain an individual, but we can't transport them, so.
Thank you, Director. Councilor Borrego.
Mr. Montoya, thank you for being here this evening. My question is with regard to the MS4 permit process that we have, and specifically regarding stormwater compliance. Who does that in your department?
Madam Chair, Councilor Borrego, so Paula Dodge Kwan is the division manager. Kevin Daggett, who you knew, has actually left the city. We're just in the process of filling that position. We have a total of 4 inspectors. One is actually a supervisor. So we have 3 individuals that are out in the field doing the patrols. But it is in our stormwater section within the traffic engineering division.
So you feel that we're adequately staffed in that area?
Madam Chair, Councilor Borrego, I don't think we ever feel that we're adequately staffed. I believe that in our original papers, we had asked for 4 additional positions. One of the things that we're concerned with is that we believe we're meeting minimum standards at this point. We have a well-trained enforcement squad that goes out and looks at any sort of breaches or any violations of that. But could we cite more individuals and could we catch more activities? The answer would be yes. We're managing with the 4 that we have right now.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Benton.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Director Montoya, and I appreciate Councilor Borrego's question because, we've had our discussion during the capital budget about stormwater drainage, and there's I get a lot of requests from constituents about what's called green infrastructure or sustainable practices, kind of on a micro level with management of stormwater. And I have a difficulty answering those questions. I kind of know what they're talking about, and I'm familiar with the principles of green infrastructure, but I can't assure them in any way that we're really tackling that as a city. And I know it's a big topic. We build these giant expensive facilities and ponds and pump stations, but there's a micro version of that as well. And so, I support you getting the staff you need long-term to do that and to kind of tackle some of these more modern practices that would take some of the load off of our bigger facilities that we have to handle. But the question I had, and we've had a little bit of discussion about this, as you know, with the increased focus on Vision Zero, and we really appreciate the mayor's interest in that, and complete streets, pedestrian and cyclist safety, it's been suggested by some of our volunteer committees that the city should have a position devoted to what they called active transportation. And we've discussed that with you and Director Campbell from Planning and with COO Rael. And I'm not necessarily asking, you know, for a firm answer on this question tonight, but are we still looking at that kind of a position? And if so, where might it reside? And I'm asking you all collectively.
Do you want me to answer that? No.
Madam Chair and Councilor Benton, we have had the conversation. We are looking at that administratively. Obviously, the first inclination is, if that is the decision that's made, that planning might be a good place for it because a lot of the processes that go through that department. But I think that the challenge will be is that when you look at the number of departments that are involved in the transportation segment, whether it's DMD or transit, or even now with APD being on bicycles as well. So you have a lot of departments that will be involved with that. It may be a good fit there, but we're certainly aware of your interest, and we are looking at that very carefully.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, and appreciate actually the Bicycle Advisory Committee was the one that initially brought it up, and it seemed like a good idea with the direction we're going with trying to increase safety on our streets. And we got the scooters coming on as well. There's another, I guess you could call that, I mean, it's a form of active transportation to some extent. So, yeah, appreciate that, and you know, keeping us posted on where we're going with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. Any other questions? Thank you, Director Montoya. Ms. Martinez?
Okay. Madam Chair, let's go back and we'll start with animal welfare. The fiscal year 20 proposed general fund budget for animal welfare is $12,527,000, 144 positions. Highlights include implementation of a new kennel keeper program at both the east side and west side shelters, which would utilize temporary staff to provide cleaning duties so as to free up the animal handlers to focus on animal care. There's also a proposed elimination of pet licensing and the associated pet data contract. The contract funding released would be repurposed for critical medical activities, which would include the addition of 2 full-time positions, a veterinarian and a veterinarian assistant, and then funding for training and supplies related to those staff. Of note is that if this change is approved, the HART ordinance would have to be revised. Also then increased funding to outsource spay and neuter activities utilizing the current voucher program. Next is environmental health. The fiscal year 20 proposed general fund budget for this department is $3,476,000 in 32 positions. Funding of $44,000 is in the budget to support the Consumer Health Protection Division and the implementation of a new online permitting portal to improve the service experience for the regulated community, including the food safety customers. The Air Quality Fund is funded in this proposed budget at a level of $3,573,000 in 29 positions. There's one-time funding of $138,000 to address the need for expert witnesses and Air Board Council support for permitting and enforcement actions related to the federal air compliance requirements. Finance and Administrative Services, a department dear to my heart. The proposed fiscal year 20 general fund budget is almost $10 million. It's 77 positions, and then all other funds, because we have a host of other funds, risk management, vehicle, computer replacement, et cetera, is $64,033,000 and 80 positions. Highlights here include one-time funding of $6 million for public safety vehicles, which we would place in the Vehicle Computer Replacement Fund. In the Risk Management Fund, the proposal is to add one subrogation adjuster to, at a cost of $90,000. Funding of $1.6 million is added for tort claims expense. Fiscal year 20 appropriations to the Risk Recovery Fund is the same as it was in fiscal year 19 at $2.1 million, just to give you a sense of where we are with that fund. Going on to the highlight for the Fleet Management Fund, that includes in this budget $531,000 for the fuel line item in consideration of both usage and current fuel contract pricing. And then in the Lodgers Tax Fund, we have a transfer to General Fund and the Debt Service Fund combined for a decrease of $908,000. There are one-time transfers. The one-time transfers made in fiscal year 19 to support the National Senior Games have been removed, which then it results in a decrease in the transfer to the general fund for both the hospitality fee fund and the Lodgers Tax Fund. Moving on to the city support, and just to remind you, city support operates as a, if you will, virtual department. It doesn't have staff in it. It supports citywide financial programs and activities that are not department-specific. Examples are the early retirement program, debt service payments, and city match funds for operating grants. The fiscal year 20 proposed general fund budget for city support is $35,779,000. Sorry for there's a missing zero there. In there is a $2 million one-time transfer to the Capital Implementation Fund for LEDA projects, which are economic development projects, similar to Top Golf and Netflix. Also is a $6 million one-time transfer to the Vehicle Computer Projects Fund for public safety vehicles. That's the other inter-fund transfer from what I just discussed with the Department of Finance and Administrative Services. And then there's a transfer to the operating grants fund, which is going to see a decrease in this proposed budget by $500,000 based on estimated grants to be awarded various departments. So each year we go to the departments and ask, what are you expecting in the grants? And then we budget accordingly. The next department is Human Resources. The fiscal year 20 proposed general fund budget for this department is $3,643,000, 26 positions. There is funding of $97,000 proposed for a senior HR analyst, which is a position that would provide support for all departments as needed. Typically, right now, we have each department having some senior HR analyst within HR to support them, but there are times when there are peak activities in departments like seasonal hires where there's an extra need for assistance, and this would be, if you will, a floater senior HR analyst that would help departments with those kinds of activities. There's also one-time funding of $500,000 to support citywide workforce recruiting. In the Risk Management Fund, there is a proposed budget, a proposed fiscal year 20 budget of $1,496,000. In there is funding for unemployment insurance claims, but this year it's decreased by $100,000 based on trends. In the group self-insurance and employee insurance budgets, as you all know, because of the proposal to go to a self-insurance model, the appropriations will change a bit. In the group self-insurance fund, there's a proposed budget of $78,098,000. This will cover the medical claims and operational costs associated with the self-funding of medical insurance. Then you'll see the employee insurance will see a significant decrease because it will then have an appropriation that will continue to cover the dental, vision, and life insurance premiums, as well as the city's wellness program. Moving to the highlights for the legal department, The fiscal year 20 proposed general fund budget is $6,324,000. That's 62 positions. Highlights include a reduction in outside counsel contracts. We can achieve this by adding one assistant attorney and adjusting attorney wages to reduce turnover in the amount of $182,000. These costs will be partially recovered by charges for legal services that are paid by the Risk Management Fund. Also proposed is an expansion to the Office of Civil Rights by adding one position, and expanding the Office of Equity Inclusion by adding one position, as well as operating funds in the amount of $87,000 total. We've already presented municipal development, so we're going to go to the Planning Department. The fiscal year 20 proposed general fund budget for the Planning Department is $17,057,000 and 175 positions. Highlights include $61,000 for a pilot program, a drone program, using drones to perform roof inspections. Another highlight is the move of the ADAPT program, also known as the Safe City Strike Force program, to the Fire Department. This would include a decrease of 6 vacant full-time positions for a cost of $411,000 and $300,000 non-recurring contractual service dollars. And then lastly, a transfer of $285,000 contractual dollars to the Refuge Disposal Fund to move board-up activities in-house. Currently, they're contracted, and move these activities to the Solid Waste Department. Then last but not least is the Technology and Innovation Department. Highlights for this department: fiscal year 20 proposed general fund budget is $16,227,000. That's 127 positions. They also have a communications fund. The budget proposed is $9,724,000 and 18 positions. There are CIP coming online funding in the amount of $173,000 for new information systems that are coming online. And then funding of $178,000 is proposed for 2 positions to expand the Performance Improvement and Innovation Office. Also, the Communication Fund appropriation increases by $695,000 to cover the increased need for cellular devices, mainly within APD, and the citywide consolidation of GPS costs, and then also a renewal cost for the Voice over Internet Protocol, or VoIP, licensing. So that concludes the highlights that we presented for each of the physical goal departments, and we will ask you for your questions and bring up the appropriate staff to help with that.
Thank you. Councilors, are there any questions? Councilor Sanchez.
Thank you, Madam President. My first question would be directed towards Ms. Ellen from Aviation. And I know that I'm looking at highlights here based on the FY20 proposed operating budget, and you're increasing by 31.1%. You're going from $60,959,000 to $79,923,000, which is a change of $18,964,000. And looking at your highlights here, basically you've got a transfer to capital that is increased by $20 million, which $10 million is proposed for security improvements. And then I look at reappropriate $2 million to continue the initiative to develop an intermodal transport hub, and then $273,000 to address public safety, and $160,000 for contractual dollars for reclassification. Looking at those numbers and looking at the increase of $18,964,000, there's still a void of $6,531,000 in that total. Where is that $6 million going to?
Madam Chair, members of the committee, Councilor Sanchez. That extra money is going to go to our capital fund overall, and that's going to fund new programs that come along. We have an interest in growing out the Aviation Center of Excellence Business Park, for example, and so some money can be allocated to businesses there. Sometimes we're asked to react very quickly to new construction, and so that money would be available for us to allocate to that.
And I have one concern also regarding the capital work that is being done now. It seems like that project has been under construction for now 2 years, and it's moving very slowly. What are we doing to make and expedite that process?
Madam Chair, Councilor Sanchez, that is correct. That project has taken longer than expected, but luckily it's in the final stages of wrapping up. We did have some issues with the electricians and not being able to have enough of them on site at a time. But that has been remedied and the project will be completed by July 1st.
And I had heard that the contractor left to do some work for Facebook.
That is correct.
When that happened, did we not try to get another contractor in to finish a lot of that work up?
We did, but there was bonding issues with the general contractor that we had to go through first.
Thank you.
Councilors, any other questions of the director? Councilor.
I'm sorry, I do have questions, but not for the aviation director. Sorry.
Thank you, Director. Councilor Gibson?
Actually, my question is for Director Montoya for DMD. Sorry, Director, you were up here before. But I can go ahead and start my question. It shows that there are 65 vacancies in DMD, and I understand, there's a bullet point, your third bullet point on the summary is funding for 2 progressive engineering series positions to provide a career ladder for the street management workforce. So I'm not quite sure if that is, but I don't know if this is for engineers. We want to create 2 positions for engineers. This is what I'm getting to. Let me tell you what I really want to know. What I really want to know is I'm concerned that we are losing engineers because, frankly, we're not paying them enough. And I want to remedy that. I really do. Is this third bullet point, does that have anything to do with actually hiring engineers, or is this more about the street management workforce?
Madam Chair, Councilor Gibson, you're excuse me, you're absolutely correct. So, number one, we are losing engineers. We've lost 3 or 4 since I've been here, most of them to Sandia Labs because of the pay that's afforded to them there. But technically what this does is it does not create any new positions. In the ladder, in the career ladder for our engineers out at traffic operations, what this does is it gives them the ability to advance within so that as we have retirements, these individuals are groomed and positioned and ready to go into, just to sort of slide right into that position. So it's a progression of where they're at all the way up the scale. The second part, just to answer your question, if you remember, this council, as one of the goals that they set for human resources, was to do a comprehensive study of the engineering, I believe it was the positions or progression of engineers, and to provide that report to you. That report basically is going to state that we don't have a mechanism in place that allows our engineers to grow. So this is sort of a test and a start for us to see if we can help those individuals climb the ladder and keep them. It's more retention than anything else.
All right, thank you, sir.
Councilor Borrego?
This particular question is for animal control or animal
Thank you,
welfare.
Director.
Thank you. Good evening. One of the questions that I had, and I don't see it in your request, and it has stayed on my mind since we first met, actually, was the question with regard to the West Side Animal Shelter and the HVAC system and the heating system. I understood that there were some issues there, and I don't see any requests for improving those.
Madam Chair, Councilor Borrego, last year we did have some issues with those. What we've done is we've identified what those issues are. So at this point, we're not seeing the need for additional money for an HVAC system, but I think we've addressed the issues that we had last year. So, you know, we anticipate that our HVAC system is up to snuff at this point.
Okay, so you don't anticipate that in the future you'll be coming forward on that?
Madam Chair, Councilor Borrego, correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Director. Any other questions? Councilor Sanchez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My question was in regards to the elimination of pet licensing. What was the rationale for that?
Madam Chair, Councilor Sanchez, I was with the Animal Welfare Department approximately 20 years ago, and I think back then we had a higher compliance rate than we do right now. So currently we have about an 80% non-compliance rate. We're sending more money out of state than we're collecting in revenue. And, you know, those are just kind of the two top points there. But really what we want to do is we want to put our focus on life-saving activities. So we want to take a proactive approach to microchipping, spay, neuter, vaccination, hopefully to increase, to do better with intake prevention, disease control, and just compliance with that. And so we're looking at a two-pronged approach there. We're training our field officers to be able to microchip and vaccinate in the field. We're also purchasing a mobile clinic, which is part of this budget proposal, where we're looking for an additional vet and vet assistant to be able to staff that mobile clinic and really look at the underserved community and provide that service out there.
And one more question, Madam Chairman. In regards to the organization Street Cat Hub, they've done an exceptional job in working with the residents of the city, and there's been a 96% reduction in euthanasias with cats. Is that program going to continue, and we're not cutting resources there?
Madam Chair, Councilor Sanchez, absolutely that program is going to continue. It's been a successful program.
Thank you.
Councilor Winter.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I have to say a lot of our councilors have been on this council a long time, and we've always had issues with animal welfare, and until this year I think that you're doing a fabulous job in whatever you're doing, because I haven't heard a whole lot bad that's happening there, so I appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, councilors. Any other questions? Councilor Borrego, there's a question for Mr. Rael. And then I'll have a question of Director Campbell, please.
Mr. Rael, my question is with regard to the proposed exit of the county into a different building and what we are doing to start planning for taking up the space and thinking about probably some issues with regard to remodeling and moving people into that vacant space in City Hall. I'm just wondering what our thinking is.
Madam Chair and Councilor, we have been meeting with the county manager, and we are going to put together a committee, if you will, of county and city personnel, i.e. folks out of DMD and folks out of the county manager's office to assess the entire building. First and foremost, what offices will be leaving, what floors will be vacant, et cetera. We will look on our end where are we leasing facilities, where is there an opportunity to consolidate other folks from other areas into the building, and then look at what the remodeling costs would be to accommodate those personnel moving in. We will also look at the parking facilities, if you will. We have the Down Civic Plaza is a shared facility with the county. So this committee will take a holistic approach to this move from the county out of this building, and we'll obviously be coming to the council with a proposal in the presentation in terms of how we propose to move offices and utilize the space. We know that the county right now is in the middle of the remodel of the building that they are going to occupy. At this point, we're not quite sure they'll be moved out completely in the next budget year, but they may be getting fairly close. And so we are doing something in a proactive way to get that information so that we can make some decisions specifically about how this building is utilized in our parking facilities and how we help support their efforts to relocate.
Thank you. Director Campbell? So try to, I hope your attention span is better than mine. But if you'll remember, you won't because you weren't here, but the planning department passed an ordinance last year to change planning and the IDO and zoning and all of that.
I've heard of
2 years
that.
ago. Yeah, I thought you might be working with that a little bit. The planning department is supposed to begin, per that ordinance, community planning area assessment process in January of 2020. As we see it, we're not sure what's going on there. Can you tell me what the process entails and what kind of outreach, materials, and services that you might need, the planning department might need to make this happen?
Sure. Pleased to do that. And the current division that works in that area is headed by a manager, 2 senior planners, 2 planners, and then 1 associate planner. So 6 total staff members in that unit. And they have 3 important sort of critical functions under the IDO. The first is the annual updates, which the council is soon to see. The other, as you correctly point out, is the community planning assessment. And the third is an educational and civic leadership component that they are required to do. This is, it's a big lift, but at the present time, the community planning assessments are to begin on schedule and with the resources that exist in the planning department. At this point, we have adequate funding to conduct a meaningful, robust public engagement process within the CPA areas. One example is that the Urban Design Department, the division within which this unit resides, had over $207,000 in reversions in FY18. So we feel that the funding is sufficient at that point.
Thank you, Director. And I want to remind you that when we were adopting the IDO, we held many, many meetings all over the city. And they required translation services, meeting materials, printouts, advertising costs, consultant fees. And yet I noticed that this process has no funding in it in this year's budget. Are you comfortable with that, or do you think that the money that you have reverted is enough to handle this?
The planning department is also known as the friend of the general fund. And by that, I mean to say that about 80% of the $17.5 million budget that we are proposing tonight comes from fees and so on. That is also a part of the budget, of course, that comes into the general fund. There's over $13.5 million that comes in the form of fees and transfers to the general fund for the planning department generally. We look at that and we look at the allocations to this and believe that sufficient allocations are given for implementation of the IDO.
Thank you, Director. And then I also, one more, and then I have a couple questions from other councilors. I can't help but notice that there are several positions that have been changed or are empty. Are you comfortable that you have enough funding to fill the needed positions in the planning department?
We have actually, Madam Chair, fewer vacancies than we have had in the past. And there are some difficult positions to fill given the nature of the jobs. One of the challenging ones is that of code enforcement officer, but we are in a very opportune point now in having almost all of those positions filled with individuals. So we've had some difficulties in the past, but we feel very good about the positions that are now filled.
Thank you, Director. And Councilor Benton has a question. Councilor Benton.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to follow up a little bit on the community planning assessment process. And this is more of a statement, I guess, than a question, but having been a co-sponsor of that lengthy process and lived through quite a bit of critiques from various segments of the community about that process, of enacting an updated comprehensive plan and an updated zoning ordinance, that the community planning assessments were really a commitment that was made to the community, that this council and the planning department made to this community, that these would proceed, a lot of the critique that we heard back during the comp plan process and during the idea was that we were not robust enough in our outreach. So I appreciate the chairwoman mentioning that as being a key piece of that. You know, I think in the end, we showed that we made a strong effort to reach out to the community, but and maybe those kind of efforts are never going to be enough. But we've really got to make a strong effort this time, in my mind, as we move forward with the CPA process. And I think there's a lot riding on the city's credibility with the community to do that well. So, thank you.
I guess one more, and then we'll go to Councilor Winter, who doesn't want to talk to you.
Oh,
but,
all right.
but I have a question of you. So we're also aware that your long-range planning staff is going to be doing a lot of this work on this program. What other duties do you see foresee a great deal of other work? Are you seeing more planning being done for the future? And then to change gears a little bit, are you seeing a large number of building permits and building construction coming in? What do you see in the 2020 crystal ball of what's happening? And we want to make sure that you are adequately funded to make that happen, because that's a huge amount of income to the city of Albuquerque every time you issue a building permit and someone starts building.
Madam Chair, thank you for that recognition. Yes, indeed, it is critical to the city's overall economic development. Yes, the same people that do long-range planning are working right now to bring forward sort of a one-off, and that is the Know Your Zone conversions of individual territories throughout the city. And we now have hundreds of those that will be coming through the EPC and to the City Council. You will be surprised and hopefully delighted with the organization of those, but it does amount to an awful lot of work, particularly for this first year where so many of those adjustments are needed to be made in light of the existing land uses and zoning. Your question about what are we doing about longer range and sort of looking out over the horizon, I think is an excellent question. And given the major amount of work that the IDO and its implementation is requiring, we've had to do that in other places than long-range planning. And I've been convening groups within the planning department and outside to talk about that. Certainly the administration is very interested in making sure that we are taking a long view of planning and development and longer range projects that don't just concern planning, but deal with municipal development and the provision of public services. So that's something that we do not hold ourselves within planning, but like to be conveners of that activity. Finally, your question about building permits is, I wish I had a better crystal ball. We had, as noted in your questions, we had about a 16% drop-off so far in the fees charged and the permits that are coming through. We don't think that that's a trend. We think that that's a blip. But what we are seeing, and this is noted in a number of the people in the real estate community, is that rather than building new houses, many people are fixing up and improving their houses on site. So expansions, contractions, adding elements to their homes and remodels as opposed to actually moving out. So we're seeing those kind of trends being reflected in smaller building permit fees for remodels than there would be for an entire new house, generally.
Thank you. I liked that response, although I like seeing big office buildings going up.
There you go.
Councilor Harris.
Yes, thank you. And this is almost as much of a comment or a question. You can comment if you want, Mr. Campbell. But one of the things I've talked about before, and I think it fell through the cracks, but I think we said we'd do it at budget season. One of the things I'd like to do is get an ordinance that says that the board-up fees go into a special fund, and then we have some resolutions or something around that that kind of keeps that fund circulating so that we don't have to go back, and I think you might have a comment on that too, but, so we don't have to go back to the general fund, and the planning department doesn't have to come to us every year and estimate how much it has, and then if you run out of board-up fees or whatever, then you have to do a sort of a supplement to the budget or something. And that way, it'd also provide a tracking mechanism of what we're doing and sort of an incentive within sort of like, almost like a mini enterprise fund, like let's build this up and also have something else with the legal department so that we're actually foreclosing on these municipal liens, because there's a fairly short statute and they run all the time.
Right.
So something like that, I think we'd like to maybe do an amendment to the budget or something.
Madam Chair, I'd like to address that because the budget before you actually does sort of turn that board up into the enterprise fund that we call solid waste management. We've been paying over $700,000 a year on board ups to private contractors to do this, and this year's budget calls for us to move the funds that we have for that over to the enterprise fund solid waste, to hire people in solid waste to do that for a whole lot less money. We expect to save money on that. But to your point about moving it from a general fund to an enterprise fund, we believe that this proposal does that. With respect to doing a more and better job of taking care of dilapidated properties, that is also part of this program before you, the budget and the ADAPT program and its change of affiliation.
But one thing, have we ever foreclosed on a municipal lien? We are?
We have and we are, and I
Okay.
should compliment the counselor to your left,
Okay.
Counselor Gibson, who has done, not left politically necessarily, but who has done a remarkable job of bringing in consultants and assisting us with the whole notion of land banks and moving properties into more productive uses. We've had very good exchanges, very robust program that we will be able to roll out, we think, this year.
Yeah, well, excellent. I think Councilor Gibson does want to be heard on this, because it sounds like she has a lot of ideas and a lot of experience. If you want it to be.
As soon as Counselor Harris is ready for it to be. Yes, Counselor, it's your turn.
Thank you. So, thank you, Director, and we have, with a lot of assistance from yourself and your department, have worked a lot on this. City Legal has assisted us, excuse me, as well. We've had just exactly the results that you would expect by enforcing the municipal liens and foreclosing on some of them. In fact, I was told that the attorney who's working on this had a conversation with her, and as soon as the letters went out to, I don't remember, 10, I want to say 15.
We sent over a stack of 10 of them recently.
And then immediately, we started getting results. So, and this is what we want to, this is the type of thing that we want to see. So, so that is happening, and I'm really hopeful that some of the more severe properties that have just been hanging around for so very long and bringing down properties can be addressed efficiently by the ADAPT program, both commercial as well as residential. And it just so happens that today we did get the final report from the community of what's it called? The community of CCP.
Center for Community Progress.
Yeah, right, Center for Community Progress. Sorry about that. And it'll be on the website. We'll be sharing that with you, but I think that you'll find that there's some really good information in there and really good suggestions for us to follow. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Gibson. Counselor Borrego still has one question of you.
Okay.
Mr. Campbell, in terms of properties that are, I guess, with the new zone code, had to transition or are having to transition to the new zoning, if there are property owners that cannot afford to come in to make that transition, how are we assessing those properties, or how are we helping those property owners. So, I mean, there's a lot of people that are living paycheck to paycheck, and, you know, they're paying their rent, their mortgage, and maybe a few groceries, but, you know, now they're having to come in and transition their properties, and I assume that there's fees involved with that transition.
I stand to be corrected, but I believe that those that are in the zone conversion process that were caused by or occasioned by the IDO are not requiring fees. That those, and nor are they requiring a great deal of expertise. They don't have to hire engineers or lawyers for those processes. They really, it's a very public friendly. Yes, they may have to come down to talk with us, but fees and expertise are not required. That was, I think, one of the policies that the council wanted to be clear would be an adjustment after the IDO took effect.
So in this, just as a follow-up, in this transition process, I mean, because there surely are hundreds of properties out there that need to come in for transition, is that not charging them a fee then is going to go on forever until we get all these properties in the city transitioned, or how does that work?
Madam Chair, Councilor Borrego, this is really almost a one-time adjustment. That we anticipated that some of the existing land uses and some of the designations that we've put on these land uses might not match up entirely. And so this is an allowance for us to have this process, the zone adjustment process, this time. When we get out to 2020, 2021, this will go through a more normal kind of zone change process, which does involve active changes in public hearings and yes, fees.
So if they don't come in at this time, then if we catch them in 2020 or 2022 or whatever, then they do have to come in through a normal process. Is that what you're saying?
That's what is anticipated,
And they would have
Council.
to pay the fees that are involved with.
That is what's anticipated, and also the reason why you've seen our advertising on the backs of buses and on billboards and mailers and so on, is to get as many people who can avail themselves or want to avail themselves of this to do so now.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director. Councilor Gibson.
Yes, one last thing. The mention came up about sequestering fees or putting them back into zoning enforcement. And actually, we had done that when we amended the Uniform Housing Code, so that those fees do go back. Actually, I believe they were split between two things. And I'm going to let Nicole Taylor talk about this, if you would, please.
Madam Chair, Councilor, yes, we requested in the Uniform Housing Code that all the fees be placed into a new fund to be divided between, and the funding to be divided between allocation to zone enforcement and also to property rehabs for those individuals who couldn't afford to come into compliance with code. So that it remains to be established by planning.
Thank you. And the other thing that really helps to do is helps elderly people, disabled people, make repairs to their homes and keeps them in their homes longer, which is a really good thing. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you, Director Campbell. Are there any other questions of Director Campbell? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Councilor Winter.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And this is Mr. Ryle. I'm real interested. It's very intriguing that we're looking to become self-insured for our medical insurance and having to deal with our provider over some issues. So does this mean that we'll have better coverage for our employees? Does it mean that we'll have better prescription pricing? Is it going to be less expensive for the city to run this program themselves?
Madam Chair and Councilor Winter, I think all of that.
primarily, it will save us money in long run. We have approximately 7,000 insured in our group because we have 5,200 employees, plus about 1,700 employees from other 17 entities. So we are one of the largest groups in New Mexico, and overall in USA, 91% of the employers with more than 5,000 employees are self-insured. So it's a proven method of insuring. And the savings primarily would be by shifting the risk to ourselves. And the data and the actuarial study shows that it is a very prudent risk to take. So we are paying to the insurance company for the risk right now. We will be paying the claims ourselves, and we will pay the insurance company just the administrative cost. That is the primary savings. The other saving is also from the rebates that the insurance company receive right now from the drug companies. And it could be very large, and I think we will receive that rebate. So those are the savings. We would have more control over the benefits. To start with, we are not changing any benefits beginning July 1st, so it will remain the same. We would have a different insurance company for our prescription plan, and that actually would save us some money. Right now, it is through Presbyterian. However, they don't manage that themselves. They have subcontracted that out, but we wouldn't know about that. So the only change, I think, would be that we would have two cards, one for health and one for prescription. Other than that, there is no change. Moving forward, it gives us more flexibility as to evaluating every year, do we need to change anything? And very first year, right now we have two different scenarios. One is to remain the way we are right now. That way, at minimum, our premium will go up by 7%. If we go self-insured, we have flexibility to kind of raise the premium less than 7%, and I think we are going with 3.5%. And even with that less increase, we anticipate that by end of the year, we would have about $4 to $5 million reserve. And once we reach a reserve, which is, there is no requirement as to how much reserve we should have, but rule of thumb is about 2 months premium. And so eventually we should have a reserve of about $10 to $12 million. Once we reach there, which I hope in about 2.5 to 3 years, then we would see real savings, because then we would have enough money that we can do more things for our employees. And we want to scale up more preventive programs. We want to provide more access to sort of the van we have right now. Also we think that we could have a clinic in this building. That way, actually, it will save us some money. So these are the savings. And also on top of this, we will have a stop-loss policy. So, and we haven't decided yet what is the amount, but let's say, for example, if a claim per person goes above $500,000, then we will have insurance for that. So I think it's an industry standard. I think it's about time that we go that way.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I think looks like this is going to be great for our employees. And so I'm maybe down the road at a council meeting to kind of give a small presentation. What you said, I understand. If there's anything else you think that the employees need to know or we should know, we'd love to have that. Thank you.
We will. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Sanchez.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Well, I'm glad to hear that there is going to be a stop-loss policy in the program, because that's critically important, because claims at times may go over $500,000. And have we gotten the pulse of the employees of the city of Albuquerque? Because they are paying 20% currently of their entire insurance policy.
Madam Chair and Councilor Sanchez, yes, we did receive some concerns from employees through directors. So what we did about a month ago, that we had briefed our directors on our plan moving forward, and they have spoken to employees, and we continue to address those concerns. We have great staff at HR under the leadership of Mark Sayes, and he's available to answer any questions. The employees should know that from very beginning there is a savings, because if we continue the way we are right now, the premium will go up by 7%. And as I just mentioned, it is going to go up by 3.5%. So from day one, there is a saving without change in any benefits.
And what about individuals that have specific doctors, that have had these doctors for years through the Presbyterian plan? Will they still be able to go to the same doctors?
Madam Chair and Councilors, absolutely yes. Yeah, there is no change in what they call preferred provider network. It's absolutely the same.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Councilors, are there any other questions? Yes, Councilor Pena.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I actually have a question for Mr. Matthew Whalen. I knew we want to talk trash now. So, I was just looking at the recycling aspect. It's something that it was kind of near and dear to my heart when we first kind of went over to Friedman. And if you could just kind of brief us on that and what's happening with that contract, and I would appreciate it. Thank
Madam
you.
Chair, Councilor Pena, absolutely. So we are currently going into the 5th year of this contract with Friedman out of a 12-year contract. And what has happened is, due to changes in the recycling markets, we've had to amend and adjust the contract with a supplement. As January 1, 2018, the markets completely changed worldwide, so that caused a shake in the recycling industry. And at that point, we did a supplement with Friedman to pay them for processing, which is very similar to what Santa Fe did. Actually, it is what Santa Fe did and what many other municipalities have done. And by doing that, we were able to continue our recycling program as is without having to stop anything. And now, where we are today is we are currently renegotiating another supplement, because now that we're 1 year into this change, the markets have started to change it, to start to stabilize, as they'll continue to stabilize depending on what's developed in this country or other countries. But we're currently in the process of doing another supplement to look at costs, to look at where we can reduce costs, where we can maybe streamline some more of our recyclables. So we'll do another 1 year supplement, and then we'll look at it again next year to see where we are as we continue to go on to the remaining 5 years of that contract. And it is primarily just due to the changes in the markets that we have to adjust the way we do our recycling.
So, Madam Chair, so when does this contract end?
I think this contract ends in 2022, if I'm correct. 2023, I'm 1 year off. This contract, this 12-year contract, will end in 2023.
Has there been any consideration given to what does it look like if we actually bring it back into the city of Albuquerque?
Madam Chair and Councilor Pena, as part of the Clean and Green ordinance, there is a portion in there that says we're to do a study, or to have a study conducted to see what it would be like if the city were to resume the recycling program ourselves. So we'll get that done to see what it would cost the city, as well as what it would cost to remain in that contract as it comes close to being completed.
Well, thank you, Mr. Whalen. I just had to ask those questions again, kind of near and dear to my heart. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councilors. Are there any other questions of any of the directors? Yes, Councilor.
I do not have a question, I just have a comment. When Mr. Aguilera came in as the city attorney, he made comments he would like to reduce outsourcing our legal department and paying out attorneys from within the city of Albuquerque, and he's reduced that by close to $500,000.
Congratulations. We should maybe have a party. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Madam Chair, Councilor Sanchez, thank you very much. We appreciate it. It's been a lot of hard work for our department, but our interest, our top priority is obviously protecting the city's interests, which includes the taxpayer dollars. And we will continue to do that in the upcoming year, and I anticipate that additional savings will only increase next year. So hopefully we'll have a good report for you next year, and appreciate all of the council's support throughout the year. Thank you.
Thank you. This is recorded. We can bring that back up, you know. Councilors, anything else? In that case, let's just wrap up the business. I'd move R-138, appropriating funds for operating the government of the City of Albuquerque for fiscal year 2020, beginning July 1st, 2019 and ending June 30th, 2020, adjusting fiscal year 2019 appropriations, and appropriating capital funds.
Second.
Thank you. And with that, I move deferral till May 16th.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor say yes. Yes. Opposed? Motion carries. R-139, establishing one-year objectives for the City of Albuquerque in fiscal year 2020 to meet five-year goals. I move deferral to May 16th.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to defer to May 16th. All those in favor say yes. Yes. Opposed? Motion carries. R-140, establishing the City of Albuquerque's administration of the Group Self-Insurance Fund for providing medical coverage for employees and of the participating entities, creating a new Group Self-Insurance Fund 710 in fiscal year 2020. Move deferral to May 16th. There's a motion and a second to defer to May 16th. All in favor say yes. Yes. Opposed? Motion carries. And last, O-55, amending the municipal solid waste landfill tire disposal fee. I move deferral to May 16th.
Second.
There's a motion and a second for deferral till May 16th. All those in favor say yes. Yes. Opposed? Motion carries. And with that being no further business, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.